Good evening, folks. I'm Meteorologist Ross Mummah with a update on the winter storm that is crippling parts of the Gulf Coast and much of the deep southeast here this afternoon and this evening. And now the first coast beginning to get in on some of the action, not only with regards to the rain, but also just the very cold temperatures. Wind chills are down into the 20s. We'll talk about that here in a second. And also, and perhaps most importantly, that winter precipitation beginning to move into the northern Okefenokee. It has been over the last about 2 hours, and more of that will be working its way down towards Jacksonville and the rest of the first coast here throughout the overnight period and especially into early tomorrow morning. So all of us are still in this winter storm warning besides St. Johns County and eastern Putnam County. That is just a winter weather advisory or winter storm advisory. So if you're in the pink, that really just means prepare and anticipate for some level of impact with regards to frozen precipitation. That could be snow. Much more so for the Waycross and northern part of the Okefenokees, or it could just be sleet, freezing rain, and ice accumulation here during the overnight period and tomorrow. So, as I mentioned, primarily rain I-10 south, but really if you cross the Florida line up into Georgia, that's where a lot of the mixing is currently occurring. A lot of snow, though, out across the panhandle there. We'll talk about just how much some of those areas have already seen here so far today, breaking records. So a historic storm for some parts of the Gulf Coast, especially in the Floridian Panhandle. But temperatures right now, they're going to play a very, very key role. You're down at 31 in Brunswick, 32 in Waycross. So surface temperatures there are at or below freezing. So anything that is falling could certainly stick on the surface there. Now, we're only at 36 degrees in Jacksonville, so that's keeping us safe for the time being. You might be able to see a sleet pellet fall, but it will melt once it hits the surface. So many of us are still at least several degrees above freezing for the time being. And part of that is because the dew points rose over the past couple of hours. We were around about 30 degrees earlier this evening, now up into the low to mid 30s. So the temperature will eventually drop to where that dew point is. And that's where a lot of the freezing will occur. So from Brunswick to Waycross, Folkston likely as well. Dew point of 32 degrees in Jacksonville currently. So that temperature will dip eventually to that point. But for the time being, no frozen precipitation falling, at least in Duval County and really most of northeast Florida. But we do have a pretty stiff northerly wind, anywhere from 10 to 15 miles per hour. We've seen wind gusts today, 25 to even 30 miles per hour, especially out at the beaches and the coastal areas. So I mentioned the wind chills. It is blustery, it is frigid. Our anchor, Anthony Austin, just ran out to get some food. He came back in and he said, it does not feel all that nice out there. And he's certainly right. It just is a miserable evening out there. Feels like 23 in Waycross, where some of that sleet and or snow is beginning to fall. Real feel of 27 in Jacksonville. 28 is the wind chill currently in St. Augustine. So not the nicest weather out there for your Tuesday evening. Now, other temperatures, these are actual air temperatures further off to our west where snow has already fallen. 28 in Montgomery, 24 in both Mobile, Alabama and Pensacola, Florida. Those are temperatures you don't typically see out along the Gulf Coast. It is still snowing there. Moderate to heavy snow actually falling in many of those locations. And this is a video that Gordy Blackmer sent in to us from Gulf Breeze, Florida. So this is just to the south of Pensacola. Significant snow, not only falling, but also blowing. So a once-in-a-lifetime scene across many beaches along the Gulf Coast, from the Floridian Panhandle through southern Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, as well. The French Quarter in New Orleans saw quite a good bit of snow. Folks were actually throwing snowballs around out there. So just pretty incredible scenes here tonight. But bringing it back closer to home, again, the northern part of the first coast, up towards Waycross, snow is primarily beginning to fall. Now, some of this is sleet, some of it is snow. It's kind of a mixed batch for most of those areas. The rain and snow line is still staying north and northwest of I-10. So pretty much right there along the state line is where we're watching for that mixing to occur. Thankfully, for the time being, freezing rain has not been too much of a concern here so far tonight. Most of it has been sleet and or rain, and again, that snow beginning to work its way down in. And actually, we have a lot of crews out and about across the first coast, but our very own Riley Phillips is up in Waycross. She got this video of some of the snow falling out there in Waycross. It looks beautiful, but definitely doesn't feel very nice out there, and it's not the nicest conditions to be driving in either. So we'll talk about driving in the snow, the ice, the precautions you need to take, especially on some of the overpasses and bridges and things of that nature. But this is going to be your best chance to see accumulating snowfall up there for Pierce County, northern Ware, even Brantley County. I think northern Charlton County has a good chance as well. So again, that was a live look at least Waycross. More snow will continue to fall here throughout the remainder of this evening. That will gradually work its way closer to not only Duval County, but much of the Jacksonville area. I think most of the west side and down towards Union and Bradford County, eastern Clay County, primarily will just be either a freezing rain or sleet mix once that colder air does work its way down towards us. Most of the eastern part of Duval County, similar story down into eastern St. John's, will primarily just be a very cold, miserable rain, and that's still what we have out there now. Again, I had mentioned temperatures are in the upper 30s. It's windy, rainy. I believe we do have a picture or a camera shot of Everbank Stadium in downtown Jacksonville. If you haven't looked outside your window recently, well, there it is. You can see the rain coming down in pretty full force, so not just light rain. This is a pretty substantial downpour starting to make its way through, and this is going to be the scene through much of tonight. Now, the rain may continue all night long and into tomorrow morning. The key is going to be, do the surface temperatures themselves actually reach 32 degrees or dip below that? Once that occurs, any rain that continues to fall will begin to freeze on contact, and that's when you're going to start to get that ice accumulation, which will really cause a lot of the issues on the bridges, on the ramps and overpasses, and especially on a lot of those roadways and highways and things like that, especially those that have not been treated yet, which not all of them have been here across the First Coast. So this is timing out the rest of your evening. Here's 10 p.m. You notice still looking all right for the most part in Duval County. Temperatures 33 degrees, so we're not to freezing yet. But after you pass really over about the midnight time frame, you notice that colder air begins to erode not only at the surface, but likely aloft in the atmosphere. The reason we have the chance for freezing rain and sleet is because surface temperatures are generally going to be below freezing, but aloft in the atmosphere, anywhere from about 5,000 to 8,000 feet, you kind of have a warm nose. So as the precipitation initially falls, it's frozen. It goes through that warm layer, it melts, and then as it reaches the surface again, it either refreezes into an ice pellet, which is sleet, or it hits the surface of the ground and then freezes on contact in the form of freezing rain. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here during primarily the overnight period and into tomorrow morning. So again, I had said after midnight, that's when things are going to start to get dicey, not only for Duval County, but especially Nassau, Baker, Columbia, Union, Bradford. That's when your chance for some wintry precipitation is really going to start to increase. And that only worsens more so as the night wears on and you get closer and closer to sunrise, those temperatures continuing to dip either to freezing, if not below freezing. So even northwestern Putnam County, Alachua County down in Gainesville also has the chance to see some of this sleet and freezing rain. Another thing I want to point out, areas that see snow up across the Okefenokee, that will likely keep your temperatures a little bit colder tomorrow. You have either sleet or snow on the ground that doesn't allow any heat from the ground to really escape. So because of that, temperatures will be a little bit colder out there. But by about 7, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, most of this is beginning to make its way offshore here, and things will begin to at least dry out. Now, it will take a few hours for the temperatures to actually warm up, so it'll likely be about 10, 11 a.m. until temperatures get back above freezing, and we begin to see not only melting on the roadways, but especially those bridges and things like that as well. So here, if you're just interested in the snow, here's a good idea for you. Best chance to see actual snow laid on the ground, going to be up in northern Ware and Pierce counties, 1 to 3, potentially 2 to 4 in those far northern spots, so up towards the Waycross area. And then as you head further south, lesser chances. I think a lot of areas, especially in this trace to 1 inch, so the white shaded area, I think you'll see some snowflakes, but whether they actually lay on the ground is a different matter. So I think a lot of those places, northern Columbia and Baker County, northwestern Duval, a lot of Nassau County, and then Glenn and Camden, all have a good chance to see some snow, but whether that actually lays, I don't necessarily expect that. It also might be very, very early tomorrow morning, just as the rain's beginning to push offshore, that you see any of those snowflakes. Now here are the ice accumulations. This is really going to be what causes much more problems and concerns, especially for those of you in that pink shaded area, the moderate. That's where you could see 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch of ice. That is not only when all the roads are iced over, along with the bridges and overpasses, but the trees completely iced. We have a lot of leaves, palm branches even, that ice over. That adds a lot of extra weight that brings those branches down onto power lines. The power lines themselves will also freeze, and those could also get pulled down. So because of that, we will have to watch for power outages across not only the pink shaded area. Everyone will have to be conscientious of that, but particularly in the pink shaded area, especially kind of northern Columbia, Baker County, and then up into the southern Okefenokee, southern Charlton, Ware County. That could be the potential bullseye for ice accumulations overnight and especially into early tomorrow morning. We've had a lot of questions about the bridges and which bridges will be safe, so we will update this accordingly as the night wears on. But the Main Street, the Fuller Warren there and I-95 and the Buckman Bridge all should be all right. They're a little bit lower, so we're not nearly as concerned about those. But the Acosta, Hart, Matthews, and Dames Point, oh, sorry, T, can you say that again? Okay, yeah, we can take that. Yeah, so this is a live look at the Buckman Bridge. This is a better bridge to take, primarily because, again, it sits a little bit lower. Most of the bridges freeze over quicker or faster than normal roadways because you have that cold air moving underneath. So it's just surrounded completely by cold air. So if you do have to travel over the Buckman, take it slow tomorrow, but this is one of the better bridges. Now, if you have one like the Dames Point that is much, much higher, I would certainly at least plan on taking an alternate route tomorrow morning instead of taking that 295 over the Dames Point Bridge. Similar story for the Hart and Matthews that are a little bit higher and the Acosta, but again, the Buckman, Fuller Warren, and Main Street should be okay, but as conditions develop, and we'll see if the icing deteriorates conditions by early tomorrow morning, we'll update that bridge condition map there for you. So another thing to keep in mind, black ice. Even after any sort of precipitation ends, the rain comes to an end, because temperatures tomorrow morning will be in the low 30s, if not the upper 20s. Any wet surfaces that are left can easily freeze. Now, black ice is typically the ice that you're not able to see. It's very, very thin. It's almost transparent. So you just have to look for kind of those wet, icy spots out there on the roadways. Take it slower. Give yourself plenty of space between you and the car ahead of you. And if you do happen to hit any ice, remember, don't just slam on the brakes. Just pump those brakes softly or gradually. And really, if you just don't have to be out at all tomorrow, I certainly recommend staying home, or at least staying inside for the most part. And again, this is primarily for areas west of Highway 17 for our southern spots. So in Clay and Putnam counties, if you live west of Highway 17, and then areas really north and northwest of I-10 here in Jacksonville have the best chance to see that ice accumulation begin to develop. So one last look here at the radar. Stiff north breeze, as I mentioned. Wind chills are in the 20s out there. Rain is just currently falling across Jacksonville. The sleet and the snow is coming down across the Okefenokees and up in the Waycross area. We will continue to watch this very, very closely over the next couple of hours. We'll have hourly updates for you here on FCN Plus. You can stream us on Roku, Apple TV, whatever you got. We'll be here with you all evening long. So again, I am meteorologist Ross Mummah. Stay warm, stay safe, and take care.